Okay, I think we are live. Good evening, everyone. Once again, a warm welcome to Positivity's webinar and discussion. Today's topic is porn addiction. Is it shame or a mental health crisis? That's going to be a discussion for the next 1 hour. We'll be looking forward to understanding porn addiction as a crisis, as a recognized mental health condition. How does it take place? What kind of repercussions and impact does it have on an individual's mind and well-being? And what is the route towards treatment? We will be discussing quick tips and techniques about what you can already take away with you and get started with. And if you need specialized care, we will show you the direction towards that as well. So, looking forward to a very enriched discussion. As we begin, I would also like to introduce Positivity as a mental health organization, as a world global platform. And I will request my team to get started with a short video to get you acquainted to Positivity as a brand. Can we have the video up, please?
Give me a second.
Okay, just give us a moment. Meanwhile, I'll introduce our speaker. Oh, I think it is up. Just a second. All right.
Everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. It's wonderful to have leaders, HR professionals, and workplace wellness champions with us. I am Tanya, a product and brand executive at Positivity. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly introduce Positivity and the work we do. Positivity is a Singapore headquartered mental health organization that is focused on making psychological support accessible, proactive, and impactful. Through our B2B and B2C solutions, we aim to create healthier and more resilient workplaces. Our B2B solutions include
I think we are experiencing a tech glitch. Let's do one thing, Palaksh. You can end the video and I will carry on. I will continue with getting our audience acquainted with what Positivity does, and then we'll get started with introducing the speaker for today. So as you could see on our video, Positivity is a Singapore headquartered mental health organization. We operate across different parts of the world. We have both B2B and D2C services where we partner with corporates and organizations to take care of their mental well-being. And we also offer direct services and mental health care to individuals who are looking forward towards getting started with professional mental health care. We have a team of 45 specialized psychologists who are associated with us. Towards the end of the webinar, we will take you through the booking process, how you can get yourself a session booked and you can start your mental health care journey today. With the corporates, we are working across different levels, starting from new hire psychometric assessment to well-being assessment for the entire organization, to one-on-one counseling, to group counseling, and even counseling at work and at your residence when mental health care gets extremely debilitating and it becomes a crisis. We offer all sorts of support that can help an individual become more resilient and come back to work with a much more supported and effective mental health and function and mental health. So having said that, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Nihit Verma, who has joined us today for facilitating all of you, including me, on this topic. Nihit is a counseling psychologist and a behavioral psychologist working in this field for the past 5.5 years. He has varied experience of working with individuals with behavioral conditions, be it addiction or be it motivation related challenges or adjustment related challenges. He also takes in one-on-one clients going through mood crisis, personality conditions, couple and relationship counseling. These are all enriched and expert areas that Nihit takes care of. Today, we are extremely happy to have you join us here and looking forward to a great conversation.
Thank you, Shratviva. It's a pleasure to be here, like every other time. Um, Hi, everyone. I'm Nihit. I'm a psychologist. And like Shratviva said, I've been working in this area for around 5.5 years now. And I think regarding today's topic, uh, it's such an essential and important aspect to cover, and often people don't want to openly talk about it. I'm glad positivity uh, is taking a lead in talking about addictions, and especially like porn use and porn misuse. Because this is a topic that usually comes up, in our sessions once the trust is built and people start opening up about porn use and sexual health concerns, and hence a very important area to cover today.
Absolutely. And I think it is one of the most discussed areas in panel room or mental health discussions or mental health seminars and webinars, but it is also yet to be discovered at a very societal and a layman worldview. Not a lot of people do come out and talk about if this is something that they are really going through. A lot of time people don't know whom to approach, right? Maybe they are
Mm-hmm.
recognizing a pattern that this is something which is problematic, or I am getting drawn towards this pattern again and again, but I don't know who to
Mm-hmm.
reach out to and how to break. Maybe thanks to AI these days, there's some sort of window where they can at least
Yeah.
vent and search about how to reach, whom to reach. But eventually the right kind of help and how this can be managed, what can be the right shift, is something which we are yet to still discuss and figure out, and that's why we are here. I am Shatadeepa. I am the therapy and operations lead at Positivity. I also have 8 years of experience in mental health care, and I practice as a consultant as well with Positivity. So, looking forward and getting started with today's discussion without further ado. Nate, how would you like to introduce this? I mean, before I pull up the PPT and get a little text heavy on
Mm-hmm.
things, do you have any recent experience, any case, or any quick one or two lines about your real life experience with dealing with these kind of cases at your office? Would you like to get started with that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think because I've largely worked in the area of sexual health and wellness, I think porn use would come up as a predominant theme. So I've dealt with a lot of clients dealing with such problems. And sometimes, uh, in fact, I think even in the slides that I was trying to create the slides for today's discussion, Pradeepa, I think I've started with a quick poll where I want to understand, our audience's perception of why
Hmm.
actually people watch porn, right?
Right.
And this is something that comes up so many times in therapy sessions as well, because you come across varied reasons why people are, using any kind of uh, digital adult films or pornographic films, um, uh, ranging from curiosity, where they're trying to like understand themselves,
Right.
uh, to of course, predominantly pleasure, because yes, it is something that people find pleasurable, to obviously trying to understand their own body sometimes, making
Mm-hmm.
sense of some people would use it for like educational purposes.
Yeah.
The sad reality of sex education in India, porn becomes like a medium for a lot of people to actually
Absolutely.
understand the very basics of sexuality and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
But then sometimes there could be other potential causes as well, things like uh, coping mechanism and stress relief. A couple of clients would I remember who would tell me that, oh, I can't really sleep before I um,
Yeah.
watch
Yeah.
porn. And it's almost like a habit that gets formed over time.
Sometimes
Um,
stress relief, or sometimes, like you mentioned, curiosity, there might be a
mm,
trigger or
mm,
a prompt that they're coming across,
mm.
and then that catches onto your interest.
Absolutely, absolutely. So all of this, and I think also like a very recurrent theme that would come up in sessions. Um, would be, especially from, I think, metropolitan cities like Bangalore and Mumbai, um, would be isolation, Shradvipa.
Right.
Social isolation, loneliness would be such a big factor that would, lead to
Boredom.
boredom again, people exploring
Yeah.
intimacy, right? And I think I would love to sort of hear from our own audience today, if they have anything they can put in the chat box. Would love to
Yeah.
hear their understanding of why people use or even misuse porn.
Absolutely. So, as we are pulling up the slide and getting started with today's textual discussions, we have planned a few polls for all of you. But if you have any points that are coming up on your mind, what do you think gets people started on porn watching? Like how we mentioned a few points. If you have anything coming up on your mind, feel free to drop it on the chat box. It's open for all of you. I would request my team to give the microphone access to participants so that they can unmute themselves and talk and ask questions wherever they feel like. So let's get started with the first poll that we have up on our screen. What do you think contributes most to porn addiction? Easy access to online content, loneliness or emotional distress, stress and coping difficulties? I'm not sure. So, for people who have joined from their systems, you can find the option of taking part in the Q&A directly. For people who have joined through your phone, you will find a link pasted on the chat box. You can click on that and it will guide you towards the Slido platform and you can directly take part in the Q&A over there. Okay, so far I can see 100% of us thinks, okay, there's change. Mm-hmm. So 43% of us thinks easy access to online content, 29% of us think loneliness or emotional distress, 29% of the other half feel stress and coping difficulties. So I'm glad that nobody has chosen. I'm not sure because it just shows how reflective we are, how actively we are thinking, right? And I would agree to all the other three. It is often the easy access, data being free or Wi-Fi speed or easy affordable rates of accessing data, loneliness or emotional distress, like we already spoke about, and stress and coping difficulties. Now, the last one is often very less spoken about, and a lot of people might be confused that, okay, if I'm stressed, how is that connected to porn watching and how is that helping? But most of you will be surprised to even hear that how unknowingly stress or underlying depression is leading towards these kind of distraction, and then slowly that distraction leads to becoming coping mechanism. That's what we are going to talk about in our upcoming discussion as well. Over to you, Nihit.
Yeah. And I think like the poll, people voted how easy access, I think, is such a big contributor.
Mm-hmm.
It's so readily available. Every platform that we see, every other social media app can be, or is being used for some kind of pornographic content, right? Be it
Yes.
Instagram, be it Twitter, be it Snapchat, be it whatever, Facebook. I think there's pornographic content everywhere. And I think that access just makes it really easy for people to like get into using it, right? Now, but then it's also important to understand that not all porn use is a problem, right? Porn use exists on a spectrum, right? So there is porn use for recreational purposes, where you're
Mm-hmm.
using porn for pleasure, where you're using porn for just having a good time now and then. Okay.
Right.
But then it can very, very easily, get into, let's say, to a place where, it becomes almost like regular use, and then
Yeah.
moving towards a bit of a problematic use, and
Mm-hmm.
then maybe almost towards addiction, kind of a situation, right? Um, I think another thing is it's also it's almost like alcohol use, right? Sometimes it's no different from alcohol addiction or alcohol
Or
use,
any other substance
or any
addiction.
other substance use. You are
Right.
we often say, oh, I drink occasionally or socially, so that can
Yes,
be
correct.
recreational use,
That's how
right?
it starts.
That's how it can be start, right?
Or even a lot of time people have this idea that, oh, I just have it on weekends. And then
Exactly.
slowly that tolerance starts increasing
True,
and the
true.
dependency creates.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that happens in a lot of cases, Shaddeepa, for sure. Right? But I think another thing that's very important to understand here, that frequency of watching porn alone is not a criteria to decide where the person would lie on the spectrum, right? So
Correct.
somebody can watch porn, let's say, a couple of times a week and might still
Mhm.
use for recreational purposes, and somebody might watch it once a week and yet can exhibit signs of, let's say, compulsive behavior, right?
Right.
And I think the factors that actually contribute to it would be your ability to control yourself, right? So,
Yes.
and this would happen so much in sessions where people would tell me that, okay, I'm only watching it on the weekends, but oh my God, on the weekends it's out of control. I'm watching it
Yeah.
like throughout the day, or I'm watching it like, multiple times over the weekends for hours at a stretch. So it almost becomes not uncontrollable on the weekends. So,
Right.
so ideally, if you look at it, they're only watching twice a week. But then the intensity, the impact, and the consequences is pretty significant.
Right.
So the consequence would be another area that I think we need to look at. How is
Mm-hmm.
it impacting them? And
Mm-hmm.
are they stopping? So have they realized the consequence of it, and are they able to stop based on the consequence that they've realized?
Right.
Are they able to like reduce it or pause it? So
Hmm.
I think control, our ability to understand the consequence and ability to stop after knowing the consequence, I think is something that would determine whether a person, where the person would lie on the spectrum.
Absolutely. And a lot of times psychiatrists also um, pay a lot of attention to the number of hours that they are surfing, right?
True.
Like you mentioned, over the weekend, it's just sounding like twice a week,
Hmm.
but the
Hmm.
number of hours and how much the thought also continues.
True.
A frequently asked question in a counselor's office or a psychiatrist's office is, does the thought linger on your mind even if you are at work or you have gone out on a weekend? Are you thinking about watching it, or when will I go back, or what if I
Hmm.
could watch it right now? That is also an indicator that it has turned into an addiction, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. We often find people, they are physically at work, they are
Mhm.
trying to like focus on work, but then the mind somewhere, the thought of masturbating or watching porn is sort of lingering at the back of the mind. And that's where I think it's a sign that we need to look at this issue a little more closely.
We have received a question from Mohan. Do you think the availability of half nudity photos everywhere in social media platforms contribute a lot into it?
Hmm. I think that's again a gray area. I think what defines half nudity, I think, is something that we need to look into. Number one, um, but but obviously we do notice that there is a lot of sexually explicit content out there on social media, and that does contribute to the probably occasional recreational use, but that might not determine the intensity and the extent of the addiction. So
Yeah.
I think
So
it's
it may act like a trigger for people who are
yeah,
already in the loop.
yeah,
So for them, if they're surfing and they come across something which is even a bit explicit in its own quality, they would get that thought and then they would
true.
want to do it and they would not have control over it. So, like any other vices, sexual content is another vice available out there in public
Hmm,
platforms.
hmm, hmm.
But whether I exercise control or not, that's on me, and if I don't have it, that's what we are here to discuss about, that how to go about developing it.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that almost becomes like one of the myths, just because, I see somebody dressing up a certain way that would, lead me to like using porn. or
Yeah.
using, I think it's more about our own ability to control and
Yes.
our own ability to regulate ourselves, and not necessarily, how somebody has dressed
Yeah.
up or the kind of pictures they're putting on social media.
Yes. So the
But
blame should not be outside.
yeah,
The onus should be on us about how we are perceiving, consuming, and engaging in any action as per whatever trigger or stimulus is available outside, right? Just because junk food is available outside doesn't mean we always consume it. So it's the same philosophy.
absolutely.
So let's look at a few common myths about porn and porn addiction.
Hmm. I think the first one we already covered, how much porn I watch matters.
Right.
Just because I watch twice a week, again, it could mean that it's actually problematic use. And I might watch like a couple of times a week or more than that and still be like recreational use. So the
Yeah.
intent, the intensity, the consequences, and our ability to control matters a lot more,
Yeah.
right? I
So
think other
that
common
if
myth.
I should,
Hmm.
if I want to stop, I should be able to stop. That's what differentiates between addiction versus not addiction.
True, true, true. And I think another myth is that, okay, just because, you watch it a couple of times or you watch it now and then, it will end up being, or it will translate into addiction. Not necessarily. It does happen in some cases, but not in all cases, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then obviously, a very common one, and a lot of the clients, my clients would tell me, oh, I watched porn and that's why I'm experiencing erectile dysfunction. Now, both of them are
Yeah.
completely two opposite concerns, like they're two different concerns. And yes, there could be some correlation, but I think the research, is still like very fresh in this area. And erectile issues can be because of a lot of other reasons. But yes, obviously, sometimes um, porn, when it alters our perception of reality, obviously, that's when we might notice
Yeah.
some kind of
A lot
issues
of
in
misconception about what should I expect
exactly.
in my bedroom versus what I see on my mobile screen.
Yeah.
That can be highly influenced by porn, and that leads
Mm.
to a lot of myths and misconception.
And that's when I think these issues can start. But porn use necessarily will not lead to erectile issues or any kind of sexual health concerns per se.
Correct.
Can be one of the causes, but it's not the alone or the only
The
cause,
alone or the sole
sole
cause
cause
behind
for
any kind of
anything.
sexual health disorder like erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And obviously, the feeling of guilt, or more, or whether because of our own moral compass or being shamed by other people, again, does not
Yeah,
necessarily mean that, you have a problem.
yeah.
Just because somebody else thinks it's problematic does not necessarily mean that's a problem. And something to maybe reflect on.
And this particular myth often prevents people from seeking help.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we meet people who have struggled with this for years, and maybe now they're reaching out for help, and one of the biggest reason is this guilt that they start
Mhm.
hating themselves. They associate a feeling of disgust and hate, rejection, self rejection. A lot
Mm.
of the times when they are in treatment, family members do find out and they create such a big ruckus about it that they drop out of treatment, and they
Mm.
feel that they have to give up on everything and there is no hope. So this particular point is extremely helpless, and it's sad, but also maybe one of the reason why we people might think that I should reach out. So it's like a double-edged sword. It can
True.
motivate people for treatment, and it can lead them to not seek or drop out from treatment as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, if people in the audience would like to again put something on the chat, if they are aware of any particular myth,
Yeah,
and they would like to share with us, please go ahead and do
you
that.
can go
I
ahead and add it.
Yeah, I think another one that again would commonly come up is uh, again might be associated with shame and stuff, but I think we often associate men with porn use,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we often feel like only men watch porn. And
right.
that's again another major misconception. I think people across genders and sexual orientations can, watch porn or use porn for recreational purposes. And I think that's totally okay.
Gaurav has posted another myth. He says porn use is immoral. That's also a
Exactly.
common misconception. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. I think the moral policing around it also is a misconception here.
So, porn addiction as a diagnosis. I think we have talked about it already. Anything extra that you want to add for this slide, Nihit?
Oh, nothing really, nothing really. I think it's there's no official clinical diagnosis called porn addiction. People use it colloquially in day-to-day language. Their ICD, of course, talks about compulsive sexual behavioral disorder, but that again, it's something that happens where there is intense difficulty in controlling
Right,
those
at a level of
repetitive thoughts.
obsession. Yeah,
Yeah, and causes a lot of distress. So the important element here is distress, right?
this.
And the distress from inability to control, not the distress because of disapproval of the society or disapproval of your own value system, right?
It
It's
would
really
come under any behavioral addiction, so to speak,
true.
and when the intensity even goes beyond and fulfills criteria of OCD or obsessive compulsive behavioral disorder, in that case, it will come under this category. Otherwise, largely and widely, it is just understood as a condition, and that's how it is treated.
Yeah.
When
Again,
does
I
porn use become problematic? We have
right. Yeah.
also talked about it, that the longer
Mhm.
that we watch it, the intensity of how much
Yeah.
we are getting pulled into it, how
Mm-hmm.
much the thought lingers, whether we can control, despite knowing the consequence, can we stop it? All of these are part of knowing
Mm-hmm.
whether it is turning into a problematic concern.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think when it becomes like the go-to response of to boredom and loneliness and anxiety, it's a problem. When we start running away from other responsibilities and relationships, I think it becomes
Yeah.
a problem. And I think in the subsequent slides also we'll talk a lot about how it impacts relationships, sexual health, and things like that.
In this context, Nihit, a case comes to my mind.
Hmm.
There was this young gentleman who came with the concerns of porn watching becoming an addiction and a pattern that he was not being able to solve. And slowly, when we started unraveling into what started this, he said, as a young child, when there was a lot of fights that were going on at home around 10, 12 years of age, when he
Hmm.
discovered this through friends, etc. First curiosity, and then slowly it became an escape.
Yeah.
He would just go to his room, watch this for hours, take his mind off, and then if porn watching masturbation, then there's a sudden relaxation that body experiences,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that became a pattern. And over so many years,
Yeah.
the same pattern has continued. If the moment there's any kind of stress, there's trigger, there is fights around, this is the only go-to behavior that he is aware of. And now that
Hmm.
he's trying to stop, his mind is telling him that if I stop this, then how do I help myself in distress?
Exactly.
So this has become so much so of a coping mechanism that body does not know anything else but this to cope with the problem, and
True.
it is
True.
so
True.
real.
Yeah. Seen so many similar cases in the therapy room, Shraddeep. Very similar presentation, right? In a
Right.
difficult environment, let's say during childhood or growing up, and then obviously inability to cope with the situation, lack of coping mechanisms, emotional regulation tools, and I think again, something that we do not really teach our kids, right? How to regulate our emotions,
How to sit
and
with big
how
emotions.
to
I think
sit
that's
with
the
difficult
biggest
emotions.
challenge in our families.
Yeah, yeah. Family conflict again being such a common pattern that we come across, and all of this leads to an easy escape, or probably again a 10-year-old kid or a 15-year-old kid. We can't really blame them, they
Yeah,
don't know what to do. There's no help available. They can't talk about it, and this becomes like a way for them to really cope with it. That's
absolutely.
that's all the help that they have, in front of them, and they easily get into uh,
This
porn
behavior.
use, and like you said, it will gives them like an intense or a sudden a feeling of relaxation and a feel good factor associated with it, and that's how the habit gets
Gets
created over time.
maintained. Yeah. So that brings us to another poll for all of us. What do you think is the biggest challenge for someone struggling with porn addiction? Is it the shame and guilt? Is it fear of being judged? Not recognizing it's a problem? and difficulty finding help. So we are mostly talking about what maintains the addiction over several years. Let's see what people have to offer in terms of opinion. A quick reminder, people who have logged in from their systems, you can access it from your screen. People who have logged in from your phone, you can click on the link given on your chat box and it will lead you to the site of this Q&A and you participate over there. Okay, so majority of us is saying fear of being judged. 33% is saying not recognizing it as a problem. And 17% of us is saying difficulty finding help. Thoughts, Nihit?
No, I think all of them, for sure. Fear of being judged obviously is associated with some kind of shame that they have. Not recognizing the problem, obviously, we don't really know if it's a
No,
problem
if it's a
unless it's too
problem.
late,
Yeah.
or unless
And
it's
there's a
really
sense
starts
of
to impact.
normalizing in school and in
Mm,
friends group, right?
mm,
That, oh,
mm.
you watch it, oh, I watch it. And then people think that, yeah, it's a normal thing. A lot of people watch it.
Yeah,
But when and how the pattern is growing to be problematic, that awareness
true,
is not
true.
there. And I don't think we have enough awareness channels for that to be created.
Absolutely. And I think difficulty finding help, we don't have, firstly, uh, even in like when it comes to like training mental health professionals, sometimes we don't really, cover these topics in detail. And not a
Correct.
lot of
Yeah,
professionals in the area of mental health are even trained to work around porn news.
absolutely.
And I do understand that it also causes like, some kind of, not everybody might be comfortable talking about porn or
I
sexual.
mean, talking from a professional training point of view, we do not have recognized courses in
Mm,
India
mm,
degree. It's
mm.
still a diploma or it's still a fellowship. There's no degree as such in becoming a sexual health professional. That speaks a lot. And outside India, there are courses, and then people are coming up and establishing research papers on that, creating a lot of awareness. But that to be recognized and applied, there is still a gap over there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think both of us would know it best. I think given
Correct.
we worked in similar fields and we worked together in this area at some point. So I think very important to put this out there that it's only through rigorous training that you often can sort of become a little more uh, or you can be like a good sexual health counselor,
Right.
because there are not a lot of courses that are available out there.
And the gap about who to reach out to, I think that's something that we can take this opportunity right now. That a sexual health counselor is somebody who engages in behavioral counseling with you to help you understand what is the pattern, what is motivating you, what is getting you started, what keeps it maintained in you, why do you not become successful in stopping this despite you wanting to do so. That counseling help is available. There are psychiatrists, doctors who are certified to give you medication for situation where it is even more intense. There are underlying further complicated conditions that are present. So in some scenarios, we need medical intervention also. So in case you or your family members or friends are going through something like this, counseling help, psychiatric help would be the first point to reach out to. In case anatomical checkup is something that you're looking at, then a urologist may be nearby, but these are the first two point of contacts for you to seek help for a psychiatrist or a sexual health counselor. We will take you through our website about how, showing how to book maybe even a hit session for that matter. So stay tuned for that. Now, coming back to why porn is so reinforcing, why does this behavior continue despite a lot of distress? Because when people come and talk about it, we see that they have insight. sometimes they do have a lot of insight that how it is problematic, how it is creating a challenge in their life. Maybe they're finding it difficult to engage in regular sexual intercourse with their partner. Without porn, they're not getting aroused in their regular bedroom situation. But despite that, they're not being able to stop. So, what is it that keeps it so reinforcing?
I think the conditioning or the habit formation here, Shadvipa, that I think sort of uh, creates such a powerful loop that people often find themselves stuck in. The trigger, which leads to some kind of anticipation, the behavior of watching porn, the reward that you get after watching porn, and then continuous learning based on the kind of experiences that you had after watching porn, or let's say masturbating with porn. But I think one of the most important aspects of this is the novelty that it gives you, right? Uh, Thousands of
Right.
videos, thousands of platforms, different kinds and categories that you can get into. And obviously, like we said, once your body or your brain recognizes that something that's helping me with temporary emotional relief, you would want more and more. And in the beginning, we were talking about how sometimes this is the reason why people get addicted to
Yeah,
porn news,
yeah.
right? So your brain just remembers, okay, this is working, it's helping me feel good after a stressful situation or after an argument with my partner or after a stressful day at work. So let me just
Hmm.
do this
Hmm.
more often. It might just work more, and this is how you want more and more every single time. uh,
Yes. I think we have received a query through YouTube, which is exactly talking about this.
hmm.
Doesn't repeated exposure to something subconsciously normalize it, which then leads us to consuming it more? I think you were saying something on the similar lines, right? The
Exactly,
conditioning and the
exactly.
reward pattern, that's how it becomes addictive.
True, true.
So, Gaurav, if you're watching this, I think this answers your question that yes, we somehow get more used to it, it normalizes, and then a small trigger or exposure will bring that thought back into my mind. I'll watch it, it will give me a reward, and my brain and body will repeat that pattern. Porn as a coping mechanism, I think we have discussed it, but this quick ICE elaboration would be something helpful for people to remember. Nate, why don't you take us through that?
For sure, for sure. So I think this is something for those watching, I think, to check with themselves once. I think it's a good reflection exercise to also engage in. ICE helps you remember it easily. So I would be your own internal states. Often when you're feeling anxious, you're feeling lonely, we're feeling frustrated, we try to uh, that could be one of the things to identify. So what
Right.
was our internal state at the moment when I use porn or when I watch porn, right? Uh,
Right.
the other would be the triggers, the contextual triggers. What were the triggers in that moment, in that context? Was it me being all by myself at home? Was it a late night um, thing? Was it, me just lying down on the bed?
Hmm.
What was the expectation or the question or the internal dialogue that we were telling ourselves continuously about it? Were we trying to justify it, or it's going to help me fall asleep? Is it going to help me relax? Right? So I think what purpose
Will it
this entire thing is
Hmm.
serving is an important
Hmm.
question to actually reflect on. And this is one of the frameworks that actually helps us understand our own patterns of behavior and helps you like generate that awareness that you need to solve the problem in the first place.
I think availability and opportunity, these are the two things that we used to talk about, right? That the fact
Yes.
that it's available and the facts that I can. Is it
Mm-hmm.
enough for me to just engage in it, or is there a bigger purpose that this is solving? Like it
Mm-hmm.
helps me fall asleep or it helps me relax. So that will be an add-on to that. It's no longer recreational, but it is serving a bigger purpose. So that's something that it can increase our awareness towards what keeps us continuing this behavior. So the role of emotional regulation, how is
Yeah, I think
porn
absolutely.
fulfilling
We've
that?
yeah, I think again, inability to regulate ourselves or deal with our difficult emotions is where we often get into problematic porn use, or using it for stress relief and general relief. I think it often reflects a deeper problem of experiential avoidance. We do not treat we start avoiding, the problems that are present, and try to
Hmm.
like deal with it, by escaping it. Now,
Right.
um, honestly, it's not a problem, but we often like, try to escape certain things, but that does, I mean, it's something that can be looked into. It's something that can be worked upon, but it's not that you're failing morally as a human being, right? And that's
Right.
why I think often, the idea of shame also comes into picture, where we
Yes.
start looking at discomfort avoidance or experiential avoidance as a moral flaw in ourselves.
Yes.
So neither is pleasure seeking a problem, and nor is experiential avoidance. Yes, we can work on it. It's good to
Yeah.
be aware of it, but that does not mean that you failed as a human. You can still work on these
Absolutely.
things.
A lot of times we see that individuals who want to work on this behavior are extremely demotivated because of this shame and guilt, because they have personalized it as a problem that I have done this and now there is no escape, or I still continue to find pleasure in it despite knowing that it is affecting my relationship, my body, my focus, whatever, but still there is pleasure. So this dilemma, conflict, puts them into further shame and guilt, and that demotivates them to further continue the treatment and work on themselves. So when we start treatment, we often spend a lot of time in creating a readiness that you have to keep the self judgment aside. If you're starting treatment, there has to be compassion about understanding that okay, it is a problem, it's a human problem that can exist, but I can work on it with the help of a professional. So that is quite hopeful to get started with, but we have to keep the critical voice aside.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why people also like are not able to really stop, um, you
Yeah.
know, uh, the behavior, because
Mhm.
uh, it's very ironical, and I think this slide just summarizes it really well. We often think that okay, if I'm feeling ashamed or if I'm made to feel ashamed about something, the behavior would change, right?
Yeah.
And that does not really happen, because I think it just creates the right condition or the exact emotional condition
More
that's needed to
stress and
maintain the
more
problem.
need for stress relief.
Exactly, exactly. Right. So you feel, you firstly you'll have these thoughts like, oh, something is wrong with me. I'm not good enough. Self-criticism would come in. And then to deal with the self-criticism, again, you'll engage in the same behavior pattern.
Yes, because
And
by that time, body has understood that if there is stress, porn watching is a stress reliever. So my self-criticism, which is putting me into stress, is again going back to the old pattern of stress relief, which is porn watching. So my enemy is now becoming my comforter. So that shame or self-inflicted guilt is never enough to come out of this channel. Rather, it will increase the pattern and the frequency.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is where it's also important to differentiate, I think, between the guilt and the shame, because I think it often becomes like really intertwined.
Yes.
Um, Guilt would obviously mean that, okay, this is something that does not align with my value. Sure, but that does not again mean that you're a bad human being or you failed as a human being. So, if it doesn't align with values, yes, we can work on it. So I think I would rather look at the problem from a value standpoint rather than like questioning our entire existence based on the habit I'm engaging in.
Right. And shame is fundamentally that something is wrong with me. The
Absolutely.
personalization aspect,
The
right?
personalization aspect, which does not help at all, because it just stops you from like really working on the problem itself, like we discussed. It's a major impediment in the way.
Any questions so far? Any of you who would like to ask any question, would like to drop any opinion, thoughts at this point? All right. So where does this shame come from? Where are we learning to shame ourselves?
Again, no rocket science. I think comes from our environment largely.
Yes.
Early messaging, family, spiritual beliefs, religion, but I think largely our upbringing, our school, our friendships, peer
Mhm.
groups, the people we've grown up with. But I think lately we see social media being like a biggest contributor of shame. So many of my clients would tell me, oh, they heard this on social media, or I don't know, in the name of marketing, I also feel like a lot of companies are spreading false information. So a lot of clients would tell me, oh, I saw this advertisement from so and so company. Um, is something wrong with me, And so I think that's where a lot of shame comes into picture, where
Right.
let's say misinformation from social media and unethical practices, I think
Mhm.
can be a biggest
Yeah.
contributor to it as well.
Nate, while we were changing the slide, I had asked the audience to drop any question. On YouTube, we
Mm-hmm.
got a question.
Yeah.
It says, sometimes when I wake up groggy, I watch porn to help me get alert to move throughout the day. Is this is also a contributor, or this is also something that can continue my behavior?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's almost becomes like, a reward or a learning system. So we've trained ourselves that, okay, when I am groggy, that becomes my way of coping or reducing that grogginess. And that's why we end up, probably watching it to feel a little more relaxed. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think there could be other ways also feeling relaxed in the morning and not necessarily
Right.
watching porn. I think learning those healthy coping mechanisms can go a long way.
Absolutely. So, to answer your question, your body has created this conditional response sort of a thing that if this is something exciting and I watch it and it helps me wake up, then let me just do that. And I am not having to do much, really get up from my bed, right? Phone is accessible right there. But it's sending wrong signal to your brain that this is how your day should start. Anything that needs your attention or to gather your curiosity, this is what it is. And every time you wake up, then your first thought will run into this, and this will continue to become a habit then. So let's watch out for that.
True, true. And I think this shame further leads to a lot of secrecy, and something that we'll discuss
Yeah.
now. Because again, you're doing it secretly, and then becomes like, a very difficult uh, situation to be in especially when you're in relationships. Often, secrecy leads to issues in the marriage, issues with your partner, and something that we'll discuss now. I noticed there was a question about education system and sex education on the
Right.
chat.
Right. Is sex education necessary to be taught in Indian colleges or universities as well, like most of the Western countries?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think invest if you and this is something I've noticed. Like I do have a lot of clients who sort of living abroad or in different countries, and I notice the contrast and the shift. There's so much acceptance and understanding. The misinformation around sex is very low. People are more open expressing their identity. People are very expressing their very open and comfortable expressing themselves sexually. And I often notice that, in most of my Indian clients, because of cultural factors and lack of sex education, because we associate it with so much shame, we often notice the prevalence of misinformation around it and misinformation around our bodies and all of that leading to like, so much of these other conditions like body image, body dysmorphia. A lot of this can come from, misinformation or lack of sexual education.
Absolutely. Sometimes we see couples coming into offices and talk about the difference in terms of expectation versus reality.
Mm-hmm.
There are expectations about a certain body type, what gets me aroused, because I am used to seeing the other individual on my screen presenting with a certain body type. But my partner is not fitting into that prototype of an image that I have in my head. And then I'm thinking that, oh, I'm not aroused then. That is even leading us to body shame my own partner, that, oh, you're not taking care of your body. A lot of time postpartum women complain that partners, husbands are talking about how they do not look or feel the same in terms of their body and the sexual anatomy, and that can really create a lot of mistrust and shame, and it can shake the foundation of marriage and relationship. So, just keeping in mind what is the expected body image which comes from pornography, going and putting it on my partner and saying that this is the right way to be, why don't you become this way, then I can be more sexually active with you, is a very, um, what to say, brutal way of dealing with the problems. And it's the mind that's the problem, and not what my partner is doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can We've seen so many of these cases, uh, where couples, whether and it could be either the partners watching porn here, by the way,
Yeah.
not necessarily men. But yes, the prevalence is higher amongst men for sure, because if I think uh, again, could be the coping mechanisms, could be a lot of other factors.
Yeah.
But obviously, or even access. I think men usually have more access. Even in smaller towns and cities, you notice, okay, men are given a mobile phone or a cell phone, but women may not have. Um, for whatsoever reason, and that's a different topic for discussion, but obviously we do notice that the prevalence is higher. But obviously, the mismatch in expectations that it creates and the anxiety it creates because you're constantly comparing yourself with these people, these characters in porn, and the associated body image concerns that come up with
And
it.
also the misconception about timings.
Oh,
I mean, on the
poor
other
timing.
hand, women are the majority who complain about timings because they might
Mm,
have come across that how long a pornographic video is going on,
mm.
and my partner is not being able to sustain that long. Also, the maybe the concept about G spot and orgasm and all of these concepts are so misunderstood because of porn watching.
True, true. I think even penis sizes, for that matter, right? What you see in porn, again, that sometimes ends up dictating the way you expect things to be, and I think that just puts an unrealistic view in your mind. Uh, Porn, again, is very intercourse centric, and again, that also like leads to misinterpretation or the expectations mismatch here, where people think, okay, that's the correct way of having sex.
Yeah.
We often use it for education and then try to like emulate the same thing during sex, which doesn't really help. Leads to a
Yes.
lot of dissatisfaction.
So the message here is do talk to your partners about what you expect and whether that expectation is working well with your partner or not. You both have to be on the same page. If not, at least try to come closer to be on the same page. If there is any confusion, then ask a professional. But don't just take porn in face value and think that this is the right way of doing it, or this is the right body type, this is the right timing. It all varies across culture, across body, across genetics, across fantasies that people enjoy. So communication with your partner about what's expected and what you want to do in your bedroom has to be talked about. And if there's any confusion, seeking professional help is the right thing to do. So please take information as much as possible before jumping on to believing something which is just propagated by porn.
Again, I think the image says it all.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think we just discussed
we
this.
discussed all of this. Yeah.
Right. So I think we are almost to the end of time. I think we can start talking a little bit about the intervention part.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, willpower alone is not enough. We just saw that because
So,
willpower is often there, but also the addiction loop and the stress relief mechanism, these connections make it harder. So, let's start talking about what can
hmm.
help.
Hmm.
Nihit,
For sure. I think,
started.
like you said, willpower alone is not going to be helpful. It is going to come with behavioral changes. It's going to come with environmental changes, and that's why I think most of the time the efforts to change behavior doesn't really work out because we are still stuck in the same environment, or we've not made any attempts to change the environment around us. Right? The pause framework can actually be a good way of, or one of the tools or strategies to mitigate or reduce your porn use.
Mm-hmm.
So P, of course, so it's pause, Pause. P stands for pinpointing the trigger, understanding the trigger. Okay. A stands for allowing the urge, noticing noticing the urge without acting on it. Now, often the misconception is that, okay, just because I'm getting an urge, I have to act on it. I think that's something that doesn't need to happen. We can just notice it, understand the need. Um, am I seeking relaxation? Am I seeking an escape? Do I want to sleep? And obviously, um, and then there can be a shift in the environment, maybe, or the change, the behavioral change that we're talking about could be leaving the room, putting the phone away, changing the location. And then E, which is engaging in an alternative response, where you are uh, trying to like deal with the situation by doing something else, which addresses the underlying issues. If sleep was the reason why you wanted to, watch porn, you, instead of watching porn and masturbating to sleep, you look at an alternative activity, which could be, let's say, a breathing exercise, let's say a progressive muscle relaxation exercise, right? Something that can give you the same kind of relief or can help you induce sleep and might not necessarily be watching porn and masturbating.
I think it's a wonderful framework to really keep in mind. If we can just remember, pause, or write it down, or put it up somewhere my eyes go every day, I can remember that these are the quick few things that I can do before I reach out to help. But let me try all of this and see how my body reacts to that, right? Any questions, thoughts from anyone on the pause framework? You can feel free to drop it in while we talk about the next technique, which is urge surfing. How can urge
Yeah.
surfing be helpful?
And I think urge surfing fits like really well in the pause framework as well. So when you are allowing to feel yourself those emotions, you also notice the rise and the fall in the emotion, right? Often we feel like, okay, these urges are never ending, or these urges are uncontrollable. But most urges, or any emotion for that matter, often comes in waves, right? There's a rise, there's a peak, and there's always a fall of any emotion, be it sadness, happiness, and similarly sexual arousal, or even the urge to watch porn. So any urge, any emotion will have a rise and a fall. And I think knowing that goes a long way, because in that, when the feeling is at its peak, you're able to, navigate it better in that case. So hence urge surfing is a good metaphor to allow yourself to feel those emotions when you're actually feeling them.
So at one point, I might feel that it's really difficult, right? At the
Mm,
top of
mm.
the peak, how
Yeah,
a sea wave is developing and going on top. And that's when my motivation can break that, oh, I can't hold on to it. Let me just give in. But if
yeah,
I visually try to see that, oh, I'm riding a sea wave, I'm just on top and it's soon going to fall because sea waves obviously has to crash at the seashore. Maybe I can tell myself that just hang in a little bit there and it will fall soon.
true,
So
true.
remember that urge always operates like a peak. It goes up and it comes down. It's a sea wave. It develops, it goes high, and then it falls. It has to come down. So a matter of few minutes, like Nate mentioned at that time, if you can alternate with another response, like a breathing technique, a walk, going out in the open, sitting with family members, keeping the door open, picking up something else that, okay, let me go fill my water bottle and come back by then, or just help my mom in the kitchen, or just let me take a walk, whatever it might be, that hanging in there at that peak is a matter of few minutes, and following that the urge will really come down and it will be easy for you to skip that urge. So do try this, it's helpful, and we have received a lot of feedback about how that can help people real time.
I think
Coming to,
lastly, yeah,
yeah.
sorry. I think lastly, the change plan will look different for different people. So I think you need to sit with this and create your own personalized plan, whether you do it independently, whether you do this with a therapist, a counselor, trying to understand your situation better. Whatever we discuss is a common framework, but I think again, in your situation, it's gonna look different. Your alternative response would be different, and hence reaching out for support or just reflecting on this can go a long way.
Right. And I think setting up a basic lifestyle schedule, what
Yeah.
keeps me engaged. So, like we were discussing opportunity and availability, the more opportunity in terms of access to digital gadgets,
Mhm.
private space in the room, not having enough things to do, can become a deadly consequence of this behavior being continued. So keep lesser availability of time and space, and keep lesser opportunity of being by yourself in the room or anytime anywhere which promotes you to watch, right? So for example, this person who was asking us that I wake up in the morning and I feel groggy, and to wake up I watch this. So if this
Hmm.
is an opportunity that is creating itself for you to watch porn, then be mindful that what else can be a mechanism to get your interest, to get your curiosity higher, other than porn. In that situation, what else can be an opportunity to get your attention but the porn? So think and build that personalized plan for yourself, and don't let that opportunity be created every day.
Absolutely. And I think it's just a matter of a few days, honestly, before you can actually see some
Exactly.
real shift in your behavior. Initially, it's going to feel very hard, but it does
Yeah.
get better.
So the readiness, right? The first few time that I stop myself is going to be very difficult, but know that every time it feels difficult, your treatment is working. Treatment is not supposed to feel good. So if it's working, then you're suffering, but it's a matter of a very momentary period.
Very well said.
When should you seek professional help?
I think again, when it starts interfering with work, when it starts impacting your sleep, your sexual functioning, when this is the only way in which you're coping,
Right.
and when obviously you've tried multiple times, but something is not working out. Hmm? But often we often recommend people with other conditions. Let's say you already have depression, anxiety, any kind of obsessive issue, or substance use issue. I think we would like you to still, see a mental health professional just to help you with this separately and in combination with the other conditions that you might have.
We have two more questions, Nihit. What
Yeah.
if we don't understand what we need, or just doing it for fun?
Okay, so I think as long as it's recreational use, that's okay. But this is where I think um, it's important to understand that again, even if the frequency of it doesn't really matter, as long as
Hmm.
it's the purpose is recreational and we're able to control, we have the ability to control. I think fair enough. I don't think a lot needs to change, right? But the moment you feel like, okay, it's impacting it's impacting your thought processes, it's impacting your relationship, I think it's probably something that you can always reach out and discuss.
Right. Next question is, if I do any of the countless alternative actions and still find that the urge persists, even after engaging in that action, what do I do?
Then I think that's obviously then probably we need to find again, there are a lot of alternatives that are available. Okay, so we need to really find what is working out for you. Maybe we've not explored all the alternatives that are available, and this is where I think a professional can really help you find the right alternative. But I think it's not just the behavior change. We also want to work on the thoughts that you're getting. So
Yeah.
working on the thoughts, working on emotional regulation, working on your feelings. So it's behavior change is just one aspect of it, where you're trying to choose an alternative behavior, but there are a lot of other things that needs to be worked on. So if behavior change is not helping, that's where we look into
That you look
seeking
into
out.
thought and then you look into emotions, and that's where
Yes,
you need to maybe talk to someone
talk to
who's an
somebody.
expert in this field.
Yeah.
You need to understand that, okay, other than the behavior, what is still bringing it in? Why
Hmm.
is my motivational channel not working? How can I challenge it better? And also, we have to learn a few distress management techniques, that even if the urge is coming back, I have to sit with the discomfort a little bit. That,
Hmm.
okay, the urge is present. Like Nihit was saying, the urge is present. Try the surf technique at that time. That urge is present. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm breathing through it. It will last for a few moments and then it will pass.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I don't need to run away from the urge. I can sometimes sit with the distress and then let it pass. And of course, the emotional and the cognitive aspect of it, you can discuss further with a counselor if that still persists. So, last slide for today, key takeaways, anything that you want our participants or audience to take away, anything, any quick pointers that you would like to
I
leave.
think just the understanding, Shadripa, that this is not something that you have to, again, watching porn is not a problem. Having urges coming up is not a problem. The goal is to have like lot greater control and choice and flexibility rather than feeling like, I am being dictated by something else. And that's pretty much it. How you control, how you respond, you look at this with greater flexibility, and that's what is important. Not that you have to, not get this urge ever again in life.
Right. All right, perfect. So that's about it. We have taken questions throughout, but we would further like to open the forum for more questions to come in. And as you are thinking about your questions, you are typing it in, I would take this opportunity to quickly feature Nihit's profile with you all. Since he is an expert in this field and have been practicing for more than 5 years, meeting a lot of people in this area, he becomes the right professional for you to reach out to for further discussions. You can use this QR to directly scan and book a session with him through our platform. If you want to explore the platform and see if any other therapist who suits your language criteria, you can also go to this link given on the screen below and get your journey started today, because mental health care can be a choice. It does not have to be a need that, oh, I'm in a extreme distress and that's when I reach out. It can just be something like gym that I choose for my fitness. So if there is curiosity, if there is question, if there is more insight building that you need to do, the journey can start today itself. Also, as we part ways, I would like you all to stay in touch with us. Go to our socials, do give us a follow. We will keep you posted with all the interesting webinars that are coming up. And the next one that we are talking about on 22nd is breaking the stigma, caring for addiction survivors. So today we spoke about porn addiction, and this entire month we are talking about different addictions, be it alcohol or cigarettes or nicotine or gaming or internet. Why do people find it so stigmatized or judgmental to be talking about it or to be asking for help, and how can family members take an extra mile to be able to support their own loved ones in surviving these challenges? That's something that we will talk about. We could have included it here also, but we wanted to make it a much more focused area, that how can caregivers act as better caregivers and understand the real challenges of addiction survivors, and they can really encourage some self work over there. So if you want to join us for that, here is your QR to scan and register for the same. All right, I'll just leave Nihit's profile open with all of you while we take some quick questions. I'll also just check YouTube if we have any. All right, any thoughts, any opinions before we part ways? If not questions, can we have the feedback poll go live, please? So I'll just take 1 more minute from all of you to request you to kindly give your feedback on the same. This can help us come up with curated webinars for all of you. It would help us to learn, to do what can we do better. All right. So thank you, Nihit, for giving us your time.
Thank you so much. It was lovely being here today. I hope this helps.
Absolutely. All right. Good evening and good night, everyone. Have a great weekend ahead. Bye-bye.